It's been more than 2 weeks since a crew from the Environmental Protection Agency accidentally released toxic wastewater from an abandoned mine into a tributary of the Animas River. The spill affected communities along the Animas in 3 states, including New Mexico. Now the river is running clear again, but there are still questions about the potential long-term impact of the spill. Our producer Sarah Gustavus brings us 2 perspectives on why river pollution is a concern now and in the future.
I'm joined this week by Bill Connor, Executive Director of the New Mexico Rural Water Association. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
Also Sharon Worth, Audubon, New Mexico's Freshwater Program Manager. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Bill, I'd like to start with you. What are some concerns you've heard from rural water managers about the Animas River spill in the past couple of weeks?
Well, originally it's when the spill first occurred, and initially there wasn't a lot of information, coming out about what was happening, how much was actually spilled, where it was coming down the river, that type of thing. So I think initially it caused quite a lot of concern, obviously, among water managers and general population in the area up there.
Were you acting as kind of a go-between? Were you trying to get more information from the state, from the EPA, to pass that information on down the line to the folks that you serve?
Not really. The State Environment Department did an excellent job, I believe, in stepping up and stepping in to try to get information and disseminate that information out. We have several of our board members were affected. Their systems are in that area, and they were directly affected by the Animas, as well as we had 1 or 2 that were on the San Juan above where the Animas joins the San Juan that were not affected by this. So we had some good input from the folks in the area, and we had some good solid folks in the area directly involved in the industry that were there working with their neighbors up there. Something unique about the area that was affected by the Animas is that almost every public water system in the immediate area there has completed a tie-in with each other. There's a loop that ties all of those systems together, and their forethought in putting that together and developing that system in cooperation with each other helped some of those systems out significantly through this process, enabling them to have water and not have to totally shut off water or ration water.
Interesting. Now, Sharon, was Audubon concerned immediately about wildlife when you started seeing pictures of this spill coming towards New Mexico?
Absolutely. One of the issues with wildlife is they don't necessarily have the ability to get out of the way of it. Right, they're right in the thick of it, and we were particularly concerned, being Audubon, about the water birds and those that maintain their habitat and their nests in the river habitat. So
the water is running clear now, and we're getting some reports that the initial testing is showing that it has been diluted. It's not as bad as people maybe thought it could be. But is there concern about the long-term potential impacts on wildlife on the river?
Absolutely. I think there has been a major dilution effect, and that's the good news. What we'd be looking for in the long term would be maybe any pockets or areas where there's been a localized settling out of some of these sediments with some of these high concentrations. The problem with those localized areas where there's higher concentrations is there can be some impact to the wildlife, in that there can be a concentration as you move up through the food chain, a bioaccumulation, and not only are the concentrations higher as you go in the food chain, but also the potential toxic effects as well. Birds are great indicators of that kind of an impact on an ecosystem.
Mm. And Bill, a river, it's a moving body, it's kind of a living body. These things that have settled down, they could be stirred back up later. That's a concern that folks have.
It's a concern, and it's an unknown. What will happen, or could potentially happen, once we have heavy rains or heavy snow runoff, and when you get that flooding action, coming into the river and fluctuating levels in the river, it will stir up the bottom to a certain extent, and that's something that they don't know what's going to happen, but that's something that's just going to have to be dealt with by by continuing monitoring and particularly when storm events are going on, to over time get some understanding and some comfort in what effect that's having on both water for domestic use and for agricultural use, or for wild game and fish as well.
Will local water managers be the ones to notice that? Because they're gonna keep testing. Like, the attention's gonna be off of this a little bit, but they're gonna be still testing and monitoring their local water for forever.
Well, they do, and the state Environment Department does a lot of testing as well. Now, I have not talked to them this week, but it's my guess that they will be doing continuing testing on an ongoing basis throughout the state. And the water managers know their water well enough that they oftentimes can tell a difference in it without necessarily, having a test come back. If something unusual is happening with it. So, that's what they do. It's like a person knows themselves or knows their pet or knows whatever this is their life. It's what they do is monitoring the water that they treat and send out to their customers, and so they keep a close eye on this, and we'll, I'm sure, be keeping a closer eye, moving forward until we can eventually, hopefully, get to a point where people have some comfort in knowing exactly where we stand, regardless of what the outside effects are on the river.
Karen, we have just a couple minutes left. Has this bill made Audubon think a little differently about abandoned mines in New Mexico and even in surrounding states that might have an impact on the river and the ecosystem that the wildlife is in?
Absolutely. When you think about the amount of water that was spilled, the wastewater from the Gold King mine, it was 3 million gallons. That sounds like an awful lot of water, but in the context of the regular flows of the river and even the Cement Creek, it's really a very small percentage. And yet we saw how vastly spread the impact was. And for Audubon, who's really interested in the overall health of our ecosystems and our river systems, to look at how even a small amount of change in a remote part of our watershed can impact communities for hundreds of miles or more. It's really very telling. And our ecosystems have a certain amount of resiliency in that they can absorb these impacts from stressors. But when you start to layer on one stress after another, like low flows due to drought, and then you add in contamination, there's a finite capacity for our ecosystems to really be able to manage those stressors. And so I think it's really a warning bell for us to be looking at much more holistically some of the impacts that even these small remote areas can have on our entire river system.
Bill, do you think this is going to change conversations about policy and dealing with abandoned mines?
Possibly. I guess I wouldn't hold my breath on it, probably, but you never know. There are a lot of mines, abandoned mines out there, and a lot of instances where the same thing could potentially happen again. From a practical standpoint, it hasn't happened for many, many years. Hopefully it won't happen again for many, many years. No doubt at some point it will happen again somewhere. I mean, it's one of those things that you try to avoid and try to plan for, but things happen. And I think one of the most important things about this, more so than maybe that will, I guess, affect how they handle abandoned mines in the future, is what they learn from this. What not just EPA learns from this, but what the communities learn from this, what the New Mexico Environment Department learns from this, and I think those are the things that will impact how they handle, abandoned mines, and I would anticipate that prior to going in and working on mines and trying to desludge mines and that type of thing, there'll be a lot more thought put into if something goes wrong, how do we stop it? How do we minimize the damage? I think that's really probably where you'll see more changes in that.
Well, I really appreciate both of you taking the time to sit down with us this week and give us a perspective on water and wildlife and the Animas River spill.
Thank you for having us.